Today, we are going to see a wrong timing on a tactical reload almost cost a deputy his life. Hi everyone, welcome to today's research-informed badge cam lesson here at Active Self-Protection. I'm your host, John Correa.
I'm your co-host, Mike Willover. Today's video comes to us from Victorville, California.
MagTech is the only freedom seed I use on the range. I personally have over 100,000 rounds downrange of MagTech, and it's unbelievably reliable, very accurate, and a great value. Pick some up for your next range trip wherever you shop for range supplies.
This deputy is responding. A clerk is called in because this couple has come into her convenience store. The guy is armed with a gun and has threatened her with the gun, and so the officer is responding to that. Go watch the original as put out by the sheriff's office. That woman's 911 call is one of the most calm and cool and collected and concise and really good information I've seen in a long time. It just takes about 10 minutes, so I didn't want to put it in this video. The officer is going to find this bad guy basically as soon as he gets out of the car. We have it with the audio. It's a doozy. Let's listen in.
Hey, brother, do me a favor. Come here. Hey, stop. Foot pursuit. Fuck you up. Sam 5, I'm hit. Shots fired. Sam 5, I'm hit multiple times. Said meds. Suspect down.
My daughter! My daughter! Mom! My daughter! Mom! Got that shot, man? Oh, that was my daughter! Mom! Mom, you okay?
Sam 5, that's affirmed.
Sorry,
you hit? Yeah, I'm hitting the leg. I don't know where else.
I see we're 5, we have deputy hit. I'm gonna cover him up, keep lethal.
Copy.
Anybody else inside?
This is the only suspect.
Here, take the gun. Holster, Sheriff, holster. Go over there!
All right.
Where are you hit?
This leg, I don't know where else.
The surveillance video from inside of the AM/PM here. Guy withdraws and then shoots at the officer several times, hits him once in the leg is the way that worked. Now, the officer is off on our left. He is going to come back and hunt our officer. Thankfully, in this case, the officer was just fast enough to get after this guy. The guy missed the officer a couple of times. You're going to see him get filled in a little bit there and then a little bit more there as well. We'll talk about it in the lessons. Our perp took the slushy aisle temperature challenge, and thankfully our officer survived this and as far as I know is back on duty. Hey, listen, I am so glad this deputy came out okay.
Yep.
I mean, holy cow. And I think there are some tactics here that we're going to have to talk about. And oh my goodness, this one made my Chucky starfish buck. Just pucker up. Right at the beginning, Mike, it's not like this officer has a hard time finding out who it is. He's got a good description. sees the guy immediately matching that description. And you're the one who taught me this, Mike, this concept of conspicuous ignoring, that this guy clearly knows he's being addressed by the officer, and that's a huge red flag.
Yeah, that's a danger sign. I want to back up for just 1 second. I want to commend, I think it was a clerk at the AMPM who called 911 and gave perhaps the most concise, articulate information. She wasn't hurried. She wasn't rushed. She was very descriptive. I mean, that's so important. If you're the private citizen calling 911, remaining calm and giving good, detailed information is super important. And it's only because she was able to do that and describe him and his vehicle in detail, his location in detail, this deputy knew exactly who he was dealing with. Conspicuous ignoring. Now, that is a real thing. That is like, hey, man, so what is the bad guy doing in that moment? He's thinking, can I get away? Can I assault the officer? Weighing their options. He needs a second to think. That's why he's not acknowledging your presence. That is a huge red flag. If someone is conspicuously ignoring you like that, pay attention. It isn't a language barrier thing. It doesn't matter if they speak Spanish or Chinese and you're speaking English. Doesn't matter. This is a red flag. Pay attention and make sure your antennae are up.
Yeah, I mean, he showed up in a marked car. The guy clearly saw him show up. He's in full uniform, and he's ignoring the officer very clearly. Now, we talk to officers about this all the time. Eyes, hands, waist. You want to watch those hands because our dude, you can see here on camera, has pulled that firearm from his, front carry, front of the hips, appendix carry position. I think a good reminder to private citizens here too, this guy's carrying without a holster and has it just stuffed down in his pants. So that makes his draw not great and his grip terrible when he does it, which is a good reminder for those of us who are good, sane, sober, moral, prudent people to carry a good holster that orients the firearm in such a way that we cannot do that. Back to the bigger point here, is that the officer has to watch the hands because that's where the danger is coming from, Mike.
100%. This is so critical. You're taught by society. Well, our society, other societies are different, right? Other cultures are different. But in American culture, especially as a young man, you're taught, look a man in the eye. That's how you show respect, and that's how you build rapport or whatever. That does not apply when you're dealing with a bad guy suspect. As a law enforcement officer, watch the hands. Watch the hands and arms. The feet occasionally, but the hands are 99.9% of the time. That's where the danger is coming from. Obviously, we can't see from this deputy's perspective. His head is way above the line where this camera is, but this is your go signal, right? This is the beep, and this is the time to draw and get to work on the guy. As Wyatt Earp once said, skin that smoke wagon and see what happens.
Yeah, well, again, a shout out to Tombstone, fantastic movie. And how fast do you want to be at skinning that smoke wagon? How fast do you want to be getting your gun out? I would argue fast. This guy's crappy grip gives you an opportunity to get ahead of him. It's the first one to put an anatomically significant hit on target who wins gunfights. So our officer gets his gun out and he takes the first hit, but he's not badly hit, but he is hit. I don't think our bad guy was hit by the officer's rounds here. I do want to note here as well, our officer responds to that by putting the gun in his non-dominant hand. And I get it. You're like, oh no, I've just been shot. What am I going to do? I actually think it kind of reads to me, Mike, like maybe he uses his dominant hand to key his mic and that's what he's normally going to do. Just a good reminder to officers to maybe put your mic where you can key it with your non-dominant hand as your regular practice, because changing hands from dominant to non-dominant like this with a threat who's just shot you around is a really bad idea.
Yeah, if you can, this is a great mental rep, right? If you could put your pork chop mic, your lapel mic, whatever you want to call it, right here, center line, somewhere around the middle of the breast area where you can reach it with both hands, that's a really good idea. John, I'm not sure what happened here. It's possible that he's sort of pinned down and he's stuck, he feels like I'm stuck up against this little crevice here between the propane tanks and the front window of this place, and I don't feel good with my dominant hand, my right hand, so I'm going to switch to my left hand. It could just be fog of war, like I may not even remember that he did this, right? And recalling this story, there's a ton of possibilities, but generally speaking, if your dominant hand and dominant arm are good to go and they're healthy and they're not bleeding, shooting with that hand is better. Shooting two hands is better. He got through this relatively in one piece, but this is just something to bear in mind if you're watching this in training as a law enforcement officer.
Yeah, even if you're hit, stay in the fight. You're still in the fight. Fight until the fight is over. Think about the other stuff later. Just stay in the fight no matter what. Even if you're mortally wounded, you still got to win this fight. Now, our officer is going to put the gun back in his dominant hand. That's the correct thing. And then he's going to initiate a proactive reload. We call it proactive because it's not a retention reload. He doesn't retain that magazine. And that's fine. That's good. My challenge is that he drops the magazine out and then goes and finds his spare magazine. And this gun is going to be empty, no magazine in it for quite some time. The other thing here is I don't know that I would really call this a lull in the fight, Mike. This is kind of, is this the time for a proactive reload? I think, man, with an active threat who's just shot at you and hit you, I would really be hesitant to be futzing with my gun at this time.
Yeah, tough to say. I'm sure it felt to him in that moment because, time is that factor of the timing. Ooh, I can talk today, John. Don't worry. Time seeming to slow down and during a critical incident. It's a lot of people report that to be the case. So he probably felt like, okay, he hasn't opened the door yet. I need to get more rounds in the gun. Better to do that maybe if you can get a little bit more distance or get behind some cover or something. This is really a wobbler for me as to whether this was a good idea. We know now in hindsight, the guy was about to come back out the door and go hunting for him. So it turns out it wasn't the best possible thing. Here's the thing. Do your reload as quickly as possible. And in this situation, have that fresh mag that you're pulling off of your mag pouch in your hand ready to go before you release that first mag, because then you could end up with a real problem on your hands. You got a 1-round gun, and that's not good for anybody.
I really think, Mike, that's important for us not to have hindsight bias here. Like you said, like we know what's going to come. So we're like, oh no, this is a bad idea. Yeah, but you're not going to know that in advance the first time. So that time for a proactive reload is when you are really sure a fight is not about to pop off again. Okay. So that's just a good reminder. Now, the reason that in the end of things it was a bad idea is because our hunter is back, right? Our guy here, the most dangerous, and our gun has got 1 round in it, and he is still putting a magazine in the gun when the door starts to open again. So you are behind in this fight. And man, that has to be the worst feeling in the world, Mike, to realize, oh no, the fight is here again and I'm not ready for it.
Yeah, I can't imagine what he's thinking in this moment. The fact that he's not quite loaded up, he's not quite ready to go. Also, bear in mind, he's slamming a mag home on a full chamber, so that's always a little bit more difficult, a little bit more risky that you're going to get that magazine seated properly, and you don't have a millisecond to spare in this situation. You are about to get shot in the face, and I can only imagine the level of internal panic he must have been feeling in this moment. But hey, if you're watching this, we're not giving this guy a hard time, right? He did a tremendous job throughout this entire contact. He had to react very, very quickly to some stimuli. That said, if you're watching this in training, remember this stuff. This is why we make these videos, is so you go, oh, maybe I want to hold off on a proactive reload until I'm sure there's an actual lull, or get some distance or cover or whatever. These are just training points we're trying to get across. But in the end, this guy did a great job.
Yeah, a proactive reload is when you're looking for something to do. When you're like, gosh, what should I be doing right now? I can't think of anything to do. I know, I'll put some more rounds in my gun. Not for, okay, I put a couple of rounds down range and now I got to do something. Also here, I'm going to note another training scar because the officer proactively reloaded on a closed chamber, but he's just got ingrained into his soul. Whenever I put a magazine in the gun, I run the action. Well, that's a mistake here. The bad guy is actively shooting at him. You can see the glass coming his way from the front door. This guy is actively shooting, thankfully missing the deputy, but he's behind and he's spending about 3/4 of a second running the action on that gun. Probably because it's a training scar, probably because that's what he's been taught to do. That's what he has to do every time he puts a magazine in the gun. No, you don't. We want to be thinkers, not shooters. We want to be gunfighters, not shooters. Because again, when we do, well, we won't think under stress. Well, if you're going to think under stress, you don't have any business carrying a gun. So this might have cost him big time. Thankfully, it didn't. I'm super impressed with this stud, but just another small training point. Think with the gun in your hand, and if you don't need to run that action, use the time for better stuff.
Yeah, I think when you're training as an LEO, actually anyone who's training with a defensive pistol, right? I think a gunfighter mindset really is appropriate. Not just I want to be more proficient, I want to work on the fine details. That's all well and good, but having that prepared gunfighter, I'm going to survive this, whatever comes, mindset is way more than half the battle, in my opinion. We've seen, unfortunately, we don't do a lot of these videos on the channel, but I've seen more than my share of videos of an officer, a deputy, or a trooper who gets shot and curls up into a ball, like, oh, I'm shot, this must be it. I guess I'm going to die now. I guess this is it. And frequently that is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It is true. You are going to die because you gave up. This deputy is heart of a lion. All the criticism we're giving him is not to say he isn't an absolute and guaranteed badass. He is. And fortunately, just by the hair of his chinny chin chin, he was able to get that gun back in the fight and return fire and prevent from being murdered in front of an ANPM.
Now, I know some folks are going to look at this and go, aha, his reload wasn't very good and he didn't seat the magazine. Actually, not the case. He got 3 shots off out of that magazine, right? So with that new magazine in there, it goes bang, 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 and then the magazine hits the deck. So what really happened here? when he re-gripped the pistol, he gripped the pistol in such a way that in a couple of rounds, his magazine release was activated. Okay, that's just how that went. I don't recommend extended magazine releases for police officers on firearms because we do occasionally see something like this. We've actually seen a couple of them fairly recently. And this is another thing here. Again, remember, I am an ambassador for HK, so they send me guns and money, all that stuff. There's a reason I love the VP9. If your agency allows the VP9, the paddle magazine release prevents this from happening. This is not a factor in that style of magazine release. Now, you might say, well, yeah, but my reloads are a little bit slower. I think in officer-involved reloads, it's not as big a deal as we really get kind of, to think about. You're not going to get a 1-second reload on the street. And learning how to use the paddle is excellent. Hey, title of your sex tape. But also here, you got to recognize that when that magazine release on the standard ones, and I don't have any problems with Glock, Mike, but that extended magazine release, like we see here, can sometimes be problematic.
It occurs to me, John, that between FLP and HK, they literally send you lawyers, guns, and money. So that's a fun fact for today. I had a guy on the podcast a couple of years ago, an officer, a super brave officer. John had featured the video on the main channel where he is shot and injured, and I believe in his foot and ankle, and he's trying to return fire at this guy who's shooting fully automatic fire at him, and he keeps dropping magazines out of his gun over and over. And we were like, what the heck's going on? We couldn't figure it out. Turns out every time he would step on that injured foot, the pain would be so intense, it would radiate so intensely. He squeezed his grip so hard, the magazine would fall out. And he couldn't correct this in the moment. It was just too much going on at one time, too much cognitive overload. But this is 2 videos in a row now, I believe, where we're dealing with a magazine coming out of the gun when we don't want it to. So I think this is a pretty good ad for some kind of gun with a paddle release to prevent this from happening. How many other videos are that we haven't seen where this has happened? Just something to think about. Definitely, as John said, avoid that extended magazine release. I had one on my Glock 17. I thought I needed it. I didn't really need it that badly.
Yeah. Now, eventually here, he dropped that mag. He's going to figure out, okay, wait a minute, I need to reload. And then he goes back and goes to work on this guy. And I want to note here, this is why we want to train thinkers, not shooters, because here he's got an empty gun. The gun went click. He ran the action, still click. Realizes I don't have a magazine in the gun. I have an empty gun. So now I got to slam a magazine home, and then I do need to run the action. And again, thinking in the moment with a gun in your hand, super critical skill when seconds count. So I think he did this one very right, Mike, and I want to just really commend him for that. And I really think this guy's a stud.
Yeah, so you talk about falling to the level of training or whatever. What John has insinuated here is not this guy isn't a thinker. That's not the case at all. What he's saying is we want to train you to, private citizens and law enforcement officers, to think through stuff and not just do this sort of rote, okay, every time a mag goes in the gun, I work the slide, right? And this isn't his fault. This is how he's been trained repetitively for, probably hundreds of hours in training. This is what he's been taught to do. So I think this is a great mental rep for you out there, the trainers out there watching this video. Like I used to be an instructor for my agency for firearms and DT. I think this is a great thing to talk about at your next qualification, at your next training session is, hey, if this happens to you, show this video to your troops and be like, hey, if this happens, keep this in mind. Being aware of the status of the state of your gun, what's the word I'm looking for? The condition of your gun is critically important, especially in a gunfight. It has to be second nature, but injecting a little bit more thought into it and not quite so much rote memorization of what it is we're supposed to do in a gunfight, I think is important, as John said.
I very much agree on that. Now, he goes back to work on this guy, all right? And I know some folks are going to be like, wait a minute, the guy is down. Should he be shooting at him? I want you to recognize when the officer's attention was on the bad guy was an absolute deadly threat. Then he had a malfunction with the gun, so all his attention sucked back to the gun. He fixed the problem with the gun, and then guess what? He time warped right back to that idea of this guy is a threat, and he goes to work on him. Also, that guy was still moving. So while some people might be like, well, that felt like a little bit of overkill, understanding human performance here, that his attention span, it went into the gun while he was reloading it and then back. The last stimulus that he had was the guy is a deadly threat. So he just kept working on him. I have no problem with that because of how human performance works and attention works. And also, the guy was still moving and he was hunting the officer. So he kind of put the quarter in the jukebox, huh, Mike?
I've never been ass out, laid down, shot in the leg by a bad guy in a bed of broken glass, fighting for my life before. So I'm not going to judge this guy for saying this dude's still moving. He just tried to murder me, right? This is not that is not overstatement in any stretch of the imagination. He wants to kill me to go and do whatever it is he's going to go and break the girlfriend in the bathroom and kill her too. I'm the only thing standing in between him and whoever else is around. I'm the only thing standing in between him and murdering me. I need to make sure he stops doing what he's doing. I have zero problem with any of these shots, John, because this guy, as you said, he was still moving. It looked to me from the surveillance video, looked a little bit like he might have still had the gun in his hand, like he was trying to move it towards him. I'm not sure. But listen, you can't be too sure in a situation like this that you're completely safe. And I think they were justified.
100% based on everything that we saw here. Now, guy takes a couple of shots at the officer there. We see it on the surveillance video, and he got lucky. Thank God his, he had that pre-ignition push, and so we got the officer in the leg. But I'm just going to say this is the one we're worried about, Mike. I would say, 995 out of 1,000 of bad guys that are in this situation, they bug out the back door. They shoot at the officer a couple times and bug out the back, and we got to go find this guy later. But the one that we're worried about is this guy right here, who is a hunter, who doesn't just want to run away from the cops. He'd like to kill one. And I don't think this is suicide by cop. I think he thought he was going to win this one, Mike.
I'll make a confession here, John, and dear viewers. There was a couple times in my 30-year career where I knew I was overmatched, and I knew the only reason I got a bad guy to jail is because he let me. Let that sink in for a minute. This guy is a stone cold killer. I don't know if he's like low-key cartel or gangbanger or what his actual story is, but someone who can decide, I'm gonna chase my girlfriend into this AM/PM while she's locked in the bathroom, and I'm gonna go in there with a gun and I'm gonna kill her. That's what he was going to do. Don't forget, that's why they're there in the first place. Is the clerk called on behalf of the girlfriend who's locked in the bathroom, terrified of this man. I've just had a brief gun battle with the guy. I'm hit, and now he's coming back. What is he coming back for? He's coming back for one thing. He is coming back to finish off that deputy. That's all he was there to do. And so I think it's critical to understand as a law enforcement officer, not every bad guy is going to follow the script and do the thing that the bad guys have done 100 times before, or in every badge cam you've ever watched, where they shoot at you and they run away. They hightail it out of there. Sometimes you meet a guy like this dude who's a very, very bad man.
And this is the one you worry about, right? This is the fight you prepare for. Because if you're prepared for this one, you're prepared for all the other 995 where that's not the case. Now, I love here, the officer's going to have to make a crap decision here either way. Am I going to hold long on this guy? Am I going to try to go take him into custody? Am I going to break contact with him? Am I going to start dealing with my injuries? There's no right answer here. I actually really liked his answer of, hey man, I'm waiting for my backup and I'm just going to hold on this guy here and keep holding on him in case he reanimates. I don't have a problem with it. But I will say here, Mike, that I think that, hey, we really need here to be doing something, asking the question, what's important now? That might be, I'm going to tend to my injuries because I can't see him moving. Or I'm going to go get the gun away from him. Or I'm going to break contact with him. Do something, right? Find the most important thing to do and do it.
Yeah, and I think one of those things may have been what he did, which was to hold cover on the guy, because we can't know, John and I can't know the extent of it. Having a hard time today. The extent of his injuries, we can't know if he's incapacitated and can't get up or whatever. I think one of the options is I'm just going to hold on this guy until the cavalry shows up. He can hear the sirens at this point. He knows they're close. Just in case this guy decides to reanimate, as we've seen before on the channel, bad guys just pop back to life all of a sudden. I think this was one of the calls he could have made that was okay. I will say this though, man, this backup deputy just absolutely handled his business. He's 10-8 locked on. He gets in there and he's like, he doesn't waste any time assessing the situation, gets right in there and aggressively detains the now limp suspect.
Yeah, he does a really good job. I also want to say here, hey, officers, your first aid kit back in the patrol cruiser, if you can't go run to your patrol cruiser, it's not useful to you, right? Have your emergency first aid kit on your person. I wear an ankle first aid kit. I really recommend it for officers. There's a link in the description. You can buy that one or you can just build your own. I don't care. Do whatever you want. Anything that comes to us from that goes to charity, so it doesn't make me a thing for you to buy that one. But recognize doing that and having that first aid kit on your person. And I know he's like, where are you injured? And our deputy comes up and goes, where are you injured? Assume the guy's in shock. I got to be honest with you, Mike. I think if I'm that responding deputy and once that guy's in custody, hey, man, you're getting naked in the parking lot of the AM/PM here. We are going to get your vest off, your belt off. I'm going to get my scissors out and we are cutting off your pants to see what the heck is going on with you. I'll maybe leave you in the chonies, but Hey, Mike, isn't getting naked in the parking lot of AMPM the title of your sex tape?
It is, as a matter of fact. And also, John, as the great American poet Jermaine Stewart once said, we don't have to take our clothes off to have a good time. That's true. However, if someone is shot like that, as John said, it is art and crafts time. It's time for the paste and for the scissors. We're going to get in there and cut everything off that we can and look for injuries, because the fact is, you've seen it time and again where a deputy, an officer, whoever who's shot, maybe shot more than once and doesn't know it. They don't feel pain in that area. So you've got to get the vest off, get pants off, boots off, everything off, down to the chones, as John said, and double check. At the end of the day, this deputy saved that woman's life. There's no doubt in my mind. He went in there and handled his business. Sir, if you're watching this, Mike at ActiveSelfProtection.com. That's me. Hit me up. I'd love to have you on the podcast. Maybe you're a candidate for the Special Pants Brigade. John and I will talk about that when we're done with this recording. At the end of the day, man, great job covering everyone's asp.